this meeting to order. And Madam City Clerk will proceed with the roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor John Harabedian.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem John Capocha.
Here.
Councilmember Rachel Arizmendi.
Present.
Councilmember Denise Delmar.
Here.
And Councilmember Jean Goss.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum. You may proceed with city business.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Right hand over your heart. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And you can have a seat. There was no inspiration or invocation agendized, so I'm going to use that as an excuse to not do it. The approval of the meeting agenda. Any changes?
No.
If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, we'll do mayor and council reports. Anyone want to kick it off?
I have none.
Oh, real quick, at the San Gabriel Valley COG meeting, one of the things that was on the consent calendar of the agenda was the coyote management plan. And fortunately, I didn't have to do it, but somebody else asked to remove it from the agenda, which is great. So I voted no on it. The COG is taking on a function that I think is, in my opinion, inappropriate, where they're just taking on more contract type things. And so several cities were interested in having the COG manage their coyote management plan, which includes giving public forums and preparing material for the public for a cost of $10,000. So I was a little uncomfortable in how they came up with the $10,000 estimate without knowing how many cities are going to participate, and each city's needs are so varied. How are they going to manage that for a fixed cost of $10,000? So I was going to just vote for it, thinking we would never participate in it, but I just thought it was a bad idea, so I was the lone no vote. That's all I've got.
Okay.
And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for voting no on that. That actually came across my radar, and I was curious as to how you would vote for it. But when I read about the coyote whistles and what it would cost for Sierra Madre to be involved with that, and I appreciate that vote.
Agreed.
And I'll just share that Mayor Pro Tem and I did meet yesterday with the subcommittee for the commercial code update, and so hopefully we'll be moving on that. That was based on our discussion back in May onto the update for that for the City Council.
Just a brief report of the Sierra Madre Library Foundation had another meeting last night at the library. I was privileged to sit in as a guest, and I'm happy to report that they are moving ahead and they're about ready to begin doing some publicity. I'd like to just, again, for people viewing at home, notify you of the website that they have up now. I think you'll find some really interesting stuff there and very inspiring things. Sierra Madre Library Foundation.org. That's Sierra Madre Library Foundation.org. Great.
And I had the privilege last week to host the annual Mayor's Breakfast with city staff, and it's always a great event every year for the mayor to do that. And one of the big reasons is we get to honor and give out awards to our employees. And I think the coolest ones and the ones that are the most impressive are always the tenure of how long some of the employees have been here. You know, at 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25 years, they get an additional award. And I think on Thursday we had folks all the way up, obviously, from 5 years to the longest standing one, I think, was 30. Was it 25? Well, it's a great memory of mine. But yeah, 25 years is still really a long time. And one of the employees that we honored with a award was Megan Tosh, longtime library employee, who is having a retirement celebration this upcoming Monday, July 29th, from 3 to 5 p.m. in the Sierra Madre Public Library. It's going to be hosted by her colleagues. And I know anyone who's been to the library knows Megan, and I'm sure she would appreciate if you came and wished her a happy and due retirement. So congratulations to Megan, who is not here, but that's going to be a great event. And with that, we will move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. And seeing none, we'll move on to our consent calendar. And Madam City Clerk, if you want to give us an overview.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening for consideration are 4 consent items. Consent item number 1A is consideration of Resolution 19-39, approving certain demands. Recommendation is that the City Council approve Resolution 1939 for the approval of payment for city warrants in the aggregate amount of $1,172,144.73. Library warrants in the aggregate amount of $13,126.41, and in addition, payroll transfer in the aggregate amount of $352,389.07. Item 1B on the consent calendar is the consideration of award of bid for a construction contract to Big Ben, Inc. for the 2019 water main replacement project in an amount not to exceed $1,263,875, and the recommendation is that the City Council award this construction contract. Item number 1C is the consideration of approval of purchases and services in excess of $60,000 for fiscal year 2019 and 2020. It is recommended that the City Council authorize the purchases, services, and supplies and contracts as listed in the agenda report. And lastly, item number 1C is the consideration of Resolution 1941, delegating authority to the city manager to make determinations regarding the industrial disability retirement and to submit employer-originated disability applications to CalPERS. The recommendation is that the City Council make that, make the determination to delegate authority to the city manager. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions on 1A? 1B? I have just a quick question, and this is something for the city manager. And I know that we see this almost in every public works major capital project that we have. We build in a 10% contingency. And my question is really, why do we do that? And is that industry standard? And can you just address that?
Yeah, the contingency we build in, Mayor, is typically between 5 and 10%. In this case, we opted to go with 10% because of a particularly difficult replacement on Sunnyside. The main is about 6 feet below ground and covered by boulder and debris. So some of the assumptions we made about what has to be done to replace that may turn out to be not correct once we get in the field and actually get 6 feet down.
How often are we paying the extra contingency on these things?
We very rarely exceed the contingency. We usually come in under budget. If we do ever exceed that amount, it requires authorization by council. I wouldn't be able to speculate on how often we spend some percentage of the contingency.
Okay, thank you. 1C and 1D. Okay, we'll open this up for public comment. And is this on the consent? Do you have questions or comments on the consent calendar? No? Okay. Okay. We'll bring that back. And any discussion on the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Any second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is approved. We'll move on to item number 2, consideration of the fee schedule, the amendments to the fee schedule.
Mayor, while our finance and budget manager is walking up, the attachment to this shows a change to 4 fees. The bottom, the open park space rental with bounce house, is a policy discussion change we have not had with council yet, so we'd like to pull that this evening, but consider the other fee changes that we have.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Since the approval of the 1920 fee schedule, staff has identified 3 fees that were improperly adjusted, and we're proposing the adjustment to the facility rental fees and park rental fees. As shown on Exhibit A, the 3 fees are listed with the adopted fee and the proposed revised fee.
Thank you. Any questions about these amendments? And so just to be clear, when we make the motion, what exactly are we taking out of of the proposed amendments?
The Mayor, the third item, open park space rental with bounce house, the security
Got it.
deposit.
Okay. All right, any questions on that? Thank you very much. We'll open this up for public comment or questions. And seeing none, I'll bring it back. Is there a motion?
Move to approve with the amendment or the deletion of the last item of open park space rental fee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous. And we'll move on to item number 3, our assessment districts. And we'll open up public hearing. And I believe this is our city engineer.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This item is a public hearing on the city's 8 assessment districts. As you know, on July 9th, ballots were opened, so the city at this point has to revert back to the 8 districts it had previously. So this is a public hearing where staff is not recommending any changes. And the 8 districts are the 2 lighting districts in the central downtown area and 1 on the east side of the city. The 2 sewer districts, 1 for Carter, 1 for the storm drain. And the 2 downtown, 1 of the parking and the lighting district, and the landscaping district, I'm sorry. So staff's recommendation is brief tonight. Let's open the public hearing, receive input. And close the public hearing and approve Resolution 19-43 for the landscaping and sewer districts, and Resolution 19-44 for the lighting districts. It is important to note here that we have a short window to enter these resolutions and data into the county website. A few years ago, the county instituted a web-based submittal program, which facilitates a lot of the city work, where every municipality would log in their website and enter and upload all the documents immediately through a PDF system. So that cut down a lot of paperwork. We used to fax the information before. So fortunately, we have that right now. So we could make the August 1st deadline. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Charkoudian? Okay. We'll open, thank you very much for that presentation. Open up for public questions or comment. And seeing none, we'll bring it back. Any discussion? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that is approved unanimously. We'll move on to discussion item number 4, consideration of resolution 1940, amending the city's classification plan and salary matrix.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. We have a lot to unpack here, so I'll try to get this as quick as possible. City staff identified organizational efficiencies that will require modification to the existing classification plan and salary matrix, which sets forth all positions established for the city. As a best management practice, management will continue to identify efficiencies and opportunities for improvement. The following items outlines the recommended changes to the classification plan and salary matrix. 1, the creation of a new full-time position of police lieutenant that will act as an operations manager and oversee all sworn personnel, as well as perform administrative functions. Also, in the police department, creation of a new full-time position of services division supervisor that will act as the customer services manager and oversee all non-sworn personnel, police dispatcher operations, records division, and property evidence room. Essentially, the creation of the police lieutenant and the services division supervisor separates the operations within the police department, creating 2 divisions, an operations division and a services division. In our library, creation of a new full-time library technician 2, which will provide much-needed additional support, clerical support and technical support, as well as serve as the supervisor for lower-level positions, and assisting in the development of library programs. For our fire department, the creation of a part-time fire recruit. Similar to a police recruit position that was adopted by council back in 2015, staff is recommending council approve a similar position for the fire department. This part-time non-swarm position will give staff the flexibility to send someone to a fire academy or paramedic school at the discretion of the fire chief and city manager. Staff is not anticipating filling this part-time position anytime soon. We are simply planning ahead in the event that in our future recruitments might require someone to go to a fire academy and or a paramedic school. For our Public Works Department, staff is recommending including the fleet mechanic position as an identified skilled labor position that will be included with all other certified utilities department positions. During the meet and confer process with the Classified Employees Association back in 2018, the fleet mechanic position was inadvertently left out of the identified skilled labor positions. Additionally, staff is recommending removing the fleet mechanic position from range 3 and creating a new range 20 to ensure future modifications will only affect the fleet mechanic salary range. In our utilities department, staff is seeking approval to change the title of water lead worker to water lead worker / sewer lead worker. This next item was inadvertently left out of the staff report to include the updating of the finance manager title to finance and budget manager. Staff is seeking consideration to include the change on Resolution 1940. Lastly, staff has been working on developing the city's internship program. In doing so, creating 2 additional internship positions would help staff identify different skill levels of interns for the program. Currently, the part-time salary matrix includes an administrative intern. Within the program, this part-time position would become the second-level intern. Staff is recommending creating 2 additional intern positions, one being an entry level and the other being a management level intern. This will help our recruiting efforts for internship for college level students, high school students as well. So we're looking at creating, enhancing our internship program to be able to include different levels of service, which will go in line with the academic major that the student is in. Approving these changes will have no financial impact to the current fiscal year 1920 budget. Good news. Alternatively, the City Council may adopt Resolution 1940, amending the classification plan and salary matrix, or the City Council may choose to provide alternate direction to staff, or City Council may choose to have staff return to future council meetings with additional information. And this concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hernandez?
I have a quick question. Thank you for the presentation. In terms of the intern, if an intern is assigned, that's me. I assume it would all be general fund. If there is an assignment that would have to deal with another fund, would that
Yes.
percentage be allocated to whatever fund that is?
Yes, it would be from the general fund, and it could be from the department that that they will be interning with.
Okay, but for the most part, we're anticipating that would be general fund
Yes.
assignments. Okay, thank you.
And we allocated for this budget year an amount of for the internship program.
Thanks.
So I have a question. So the internship program, are you having the interns here for 2 years?
It would be a maximum of two years, 24 months. We'd like to hopefully develop them so that they can go out and get a full-time job elsewhere, or even here if there's an opportunity at the time. But the program is for a rotation of interns to be able to be part of the program every 2 years or every year. So there's going to be a constant rotation as we move forward. Typically, the program is busy during the summertime, and so we will get new people that are interested, and some of them may have already gotten a job somewhere else. So, yeah, so we're looking at no more than 24 months for the program if someone chooses to stay here for the full 24 months.
And my next question is, they're not going to be doing bargaining work, correct?
No,
Okay.
it's simply, I'm sorry.
Is the intent of that to hire from Sierra Madre residents? I mean,
Ideally, would be nice. We've had some Sierra Madre residents in the past as part of our intern program, and it's worked out well. They've come back the following summer to continue their intern program. So yes, ideally it would be nice, but we will open it up to other college level students, maybe and also some high school students as well that are, I think it's over the age of 16 that would be eligible for the intern program.
Okay, just one more thing. What was the purpose of combining the water and the water sewer workers? I thought they were separate. I mean, are the sewer folk doing the sewer work, they also perform water
No,
functions? Or?
they're separate. There's an individual that would be a sewer lead worker, and then there will be an individual on the water side for water lead worker. It's not necessarily one title. It's really just the two separate titles of with different responsibilities. So currently our sewer lead worker does only sewer type work. That the responsibilities are more sewer related.
So what, for the person that's in that position today, what title does he have today?
Right now, they're under the water lead worker, but most of their function is
Okay.
sewer
I see.
sewer lead
Okay.
worker. So it just makes it cleaner to look at when you're identifying positions.
Councilmember Gauss?
I'm good.
The only question I have is about the lieutenant and the captain. So the proposed changes would put, I guess there's two parts to my question, would put the lieutenant and the captain on the exact same pay scale, correct? Are we concerned at all that that will effectively either disincentivize lieutenants to want to become captains, or alternatively, if we want to hire captains, basically just to make that nearly impossible?
That's something that we're going to look into in the near future with the changes coming up. But ideally, the lieutenant level of the operations would be essentially doing similar work to what the captain was doing. So we wanted to keep it in the same classification, but a different range in the event that in the future changes occur with the captain. Right now, the captain is not going to be filled at this time. We're creating the lieutenant to create that the structure. At this point, we don't know if the captain's position will be filled.
So, can I ask one question? So the chain of command, what is the chain of command?
It would be the chief, lieutenant, and then the sergeants, and then corporals, police officers.
So the captain is not, but if you fill a captain position,
If we do fill a captain position in the future, then it would be the chief, the captain, lieutenant.
I think Mayor, Councilmember Delmar, the reason you're not seeing a change to the captain right now is if we recommended a change to upgrade the pay range of the captain without making a change to the police chief position, there'd be compression. So the future of the captain position and pay range, I think, depends on how council reacts to the next item before you tonight. The captain will remain vacant, but we would anticipate if we fill it, having it at a separate pay range in between the lieutenant and the chief position.
And I think Mr. Hernandez touched on my second question, which was going to be what would effectively a captain be doing that a lieutenant now wouldn't be doing?
Mayor, there's not much difference in our organization, which is why we're comfortable having the titles and the pay equal right now. The captain is more about rank than responsibility in Sierra Madre. We have larger agencies would divide it differently, but essentially a captain, as Captain Kaysen was doing when she was here, will be doing the same work that our lieutenant, when that position is filled, will be doing. So essentially the middle management position of the police department.
Okay. I mean, does that not strike? I mean, is this something that anyone else has done, or I'm fine doing it because we haven't filled the captain spot. This is going to have us come back and have to deal with this at some point. So I wonder if we deal with it tonight. I'm just wondering, why not just figure this out now? I mean, we don't have to, but
I think ideally, we would like to address the range and pay scale of management in the police department. Adjusting the captain's salary in between the lieutenant and police chief right now would make for a compressed range for all three
yeah,
positions.
I hear you on that. That's a good point. Sorry, City Attorney, did you have something to say, or?
Well, I was just, I was going to point out that very recently, South Pasadena has just eliminated their captain position.
Good to know. Okay.
And their command structure is now lieutenant, and then they jump from captain to deputy chief.
Mm.
So it's
Okay.
a little different, but
Interesting. All right. Thank you. That was good to know. I don't have any other questions. We can open up for public comment questions. And seeing none, we'll bring it back. Any discussion?
I just want to make a comment. In the past, we have been long periods of time without a captain in the
Right.
past, and, we've not created the position's always been there, but we've hired a captain depending on the needs, is my recollection,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's correct, Mayor Pro Tem.
So we've got, as in the staff report says, that we've got folks that are qualified for the next level to a lieutenant. You might not want to make that jump to a captain, but they're qualified to be a lieutenant, and they'll be doing a lot of the functions of a captain. I see that as a really good thing
Mhm.
developmentally for our people, and it just allows a career path within instead of having to hire from outside to fill a position with that responsibility.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anything else?
I just have one concern about the intern positions. Have we tried to do non-paying interns?
We do. Every year, we get a few interested that are wanting to volunteer as an intern. High school, or they're just entry-level college students that will come in and want to work for a few hours during the summertime, and we do welcome that as well.
And do you have an internship policy?
We're working on the program that will outline the internship program, that will give an explanation to the intern on how the program works, the different departments, the different opportunities, and also for staff to use as a guideline when developing projects or the need for an intern.
Okay, because you know what I'm getting at, that we can't have them doing bargaining work, right?
Right.
I think Councilmember Delmar, the reason we have it set at 2 years is typically we think the intern's going to get a lot more out of us the first year, and we'll get a little bit out of them the second year.
Okay.
This is mostly an opportunity to give them experience to fields that they may not be able to otherwise get into, so up at high levels of water or with management in the city. I don't intend them taking on actually any work outside of
Okay, thank you.
copying and items like that.
Perhaps when you get your program done, we can bring it back to council so we can review that.
Well, sure, yes.
Thank you.
I also want to highlight that recently we had an intern, college-level intern, recently graduated from Cal Poly in planning. Started out as an intern, and we recently hired him as a full-time employee.
That's great.
So it can work out and he's a Sierra Madre resident, so that's
That's
the bigger
great.
benefit there. So.
Just a quick question, just with my, since I represent Sierra Madre on the Foothill Workforce Development Board, I know last year we brought in 3 paid interns. Did we identify any interns this year? I don't.
Oh, we did. Through the workforce, we recently hired one for part-time.
Oh, good.
The hours ran out from the workforce, and we offered them a part-time position, and so they're here with us.
So you have part-time position, but we didn't bring in new interns.
We have 2 from Workforce Development
Oh, great.
currently.
Oh, great.
One was with us last year, and she came back this year.
Yes. So
Great.
they
Thank
returned.
you.
Councilmember Goss, did you have?
Nothing.
No? Okay. Take a motion. Thank you.
Move approval.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's unanimous. And we'll move on to item number 5, the city's compensation philosophy.
Mayor, we have a brief presentation to start this topic.
Okay. Back in December of 2018, City Council directed staff to implement a compensation study. In order to develop a comprehensive salary study, city staff created a formal compensation philosophy that will spell out the goals and factors to be weighed in establishing and administering the city's compensation system. The compensation philosophy will explain the city's position on compensation and provide a consistent framework in determining employees' pay and benefits. The framework should incorporate current and long-term financial position, size of the organization and compared to our peers, position in industry that relates to services offered, pay for performance principles, and the level of difficulty in retention and acquiring of talent. Essentially, the purpose is to reduce the cost of training and employee turnover. The framework should be equitable, impartial, fiscally responsible, and competitive in the desired marketplace. The framework will work to retain and motivate employees, attract employees to the organization. The compensation philosophy should aim to retain and attract high-skilled staff that's capable of delivering the highest standards of public service, and then also define Sierra Madre's position in the marketplace. The Sierra Madre will take into account several factors here: the compensation from all competition in the marketplace, such as public sector, private sector, and the nonprofit sector. We'll also take into account the peer cities, which will be similar to Sierra Madre in terms of the population, budget, and services offered. For example, when we look at other cities similar to us, South Pasadena, San Marino, cities like Duarte, but we compare the different services that they offer. Some of the cities will be full service, public safety, and some will not, so we take those into account when we're looking at the information. The peer industries should substantially be similar to Sierra Madre as well in terms of work performed, the education and or experience that's required, and the retaining current employees as well as the pay for performance principles, which will be included where applicable.
So if council adopts the compensation philosophy tonight, there will be one big change. We'll no longer have a one-size-fits-all philosophy as we move forward. So we want to identify the difference in labor between skilled and unskilled, certified and not certified. And we want to make sure our compensation is paying not only what the marketplace demands, if it means we have to increase our wages, but also what the marketplace demands if our wages are okay. So we want to provide raises based on merit. Management team has already moved to pay for performance. We've been doing it for about 2 years. Outside of a raise based on merit, there's 3 types of ways that the market can adjust. There's changing conditions in the market. There's a shortage in an area, so the workforce becomes more expensive to hire. Any of our bargaining groups can negotiate a pay, or if there's a COLA change in inflation, we don't want to pay people less for doing the same job. So staff would control number 1, and the other 3 would have to be ratified and approved by council before any changes could be made. So in general, when we think of our workforce, we think of the 3 bargaining units. But what we're trying to get as our overall philosophy is show that management can be outside or inside of any of the groups we have. Skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled can be in general government. Utilities can be further broken down. And then the positions that would be inside of that. So when we talk about how we want to bring our philosophy back, there's basically 2 things we look at, right? What is the market expectation? So we go out, we do our study, we say our range is fine or it needs to be adjusted, but then we also have to take into account the actual experience. So we put out a job application 2 weeks ago, and within the first week, we got 75 applications for the position, several very qualified applicants. So we knew that our pay is right in line with what we can hire. Alternatively, we had a position out a little while back that we ran for a month, and we only got one total applicant for it. So that tells us, our actual experience is telling us that we need to adjust the pay range to attract more qualified applicants. So when we look at areas we say suspected vulnerability because we haven't completed the study yet, but using the principles that we talked about earlier, management almost across the board, certified utility employees, mainly in water, but some in sewer, and our dispatch are areas where we think we're vulnerable. Areas where more study is required, we look at firefighter. We don't have a problem establishing a list. So the last time we went out, we qualified, I think, 17 people. But part of the pay philosophy has to be retention, and because it's a new department, we don't know how long we're able to keep them yet, so we have to keep an eye on that. General government skilled employees, we tend to have a little bit of turnover there as well, but again, more study is required. We're not seeing any vulnerability in unskilled or semi-skilled general government or non-certified utility employees. So next steps, we plan to complete initial evaluations for the areas that we think are vulnerable, bring them back to council at some point before the close of the year.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, we'll open it up for public questions and comment.
Well,
Or
I
do you
have
want-
one
yeah?
question, yeah. Again, just two situations you described where you put out a requisition and you get a lot of applications, and then another one you get very few. This isn't new. I mean, why has it taken so long to make this adjustment? I mean, even, your predecessor, we often discussed, a lot of the pay for performance and market-based concepts. Is it just that difficult to implement?
I think generally in the public sector, even when we talk about it with my peers, you have to have political will to do it, and a lot of times that can be challenging. Also, you have to have managers who are dedicated to actually reviewing their employees appropriately and not just stamping a raise because the calendar's flipped over a year, and that's also very difficult, especially when you work as closely as we do here, because we're not just coworkers, but we tend to be friends. So I think those are the two biggest areas. Also, it's to go down and recognize that a lot of our workforce isn't competing with other governments. When people leave here, they go to healthcare, they go to the private sector. Tracking that data is also an undertaking. So I think it's a lot of work to do it, but it's also the right thing to do. So I can't speculate on other governments. I know Miguel and I have been just working on the PowerPoint for like a year, and we only got 12 slides, so it's it's a lot of work.
I just have another question too. It's my impression that there's not a lot of crossover between the private sector and public sector, and I could be absolutely wrong, but my feeling is that there would be a lot of people in the private sector that would like to be in the public sector, but I've noticed that it's almost like every job requirement must have 2 years in, government type job to do a general type of, financial analyst or something like that. I just think we're missing on opportunities to pick up some talent where the learning curve might take a little bit time to launch, but I mean, you might even get better, higher quality employees by removing some of those restrictions.
I think that statement's correct. Excluding public safety, which tends to leave for other public safety positions, what we found when people leave Sierra Madre, the last study we did, 51% of the time they go to an industry that's not government, which was actually higher than I thought it would be. Our hiring practices, I think we've opened up. We generally look for the skills and ability people have, but also what we think they can do. And our essential game plan is to hire people in positions earlier, then they're probably ready for, and then train them up and
Yeah.
take advantage of the abilities that they have.
For the point about no longer having a one-size-fit-all for wage increases, which I think is really a smart idea, and I think it would be really effective. Have we previewed that with our bargaining units? I assume that we have, but what was the feedback?
For the most recent union contract, the 5-year contract with the CEA, we had quite a few discussions, and what we came up with was the skilled workers where we're vulnerable received a series of pay increases. We're still below market, but closer. But the other half of the workforce, it wasn't water, fleet, or sewer certified, only received the COLA, because what we found is those wages were appropriate. And we presented the plan and the philosophy behind it and why we're doing it that way. And one half of the union really thought it was the right thing to do, and the other half of the union was more skeptical.
Yeah.
But they did, in the end, agree to it, and that is what we have currently with the CEA. And now we need to push that further into the organization.
Okay. Yeah, which was going to be my next question, which is how do you think that this would practically play out? But you just answered that, so.
And just one more question too. You know, the pay for performance, what's a key component of that, of course, is that the supervisors do their performance evaluations. What kind of policy do you have in place to ensure that those actually get done and get done in a meaningful way?
So if a supervisor doesn't complete their employee's performance review within the annual date, then they're not eligible for a pay raise themselves. We've actually completed, I think, within the last year, a review for all of our employees currently. We are, I would say, fine-tuning, but we're still really working on ensuring managers know how to give an accurate, honest review and feedback. We have some managers that are very skilled at it, and some that are still working on it. But that will be the hardest part of this, is when you have people working side by side and one of them is performing better, then they should be rewarded for that.
Yeah. Okay, you gave me the right answer that I wanted to hear, but I would just take that one step further. Where I used to work, it was not only were you not eligible for a raise, but you could not have a meets rating if you did not, a supervisor that did not complete their performance review was does not meet rating. So that put them at risk then. It worked.
Yeah.
Once those policies were put in place, everybody did their performance evaluations.
That's right. Yeah, you need the carrot and the stick. Anything else before we open up for public comment or questions? Great. Thank you. We'll open it up. And see, now we'll bring it back. Any further discussion?
You know, I would just like to say that we're finding in the bargaining world, in compensation, that we're really looking forward to this pay for performance in a lot of different unions and bargaining. And I think our city manager hasn't given himself enough credit. And one of the reasons we don't have this in a lot of cities is because you have to have a passion for this, and you have to spend a lot of work to try to get this compensation policy going and getting those policies. So kudos to our manager of HR and city manager for doing this.
And just to piggyback on the kudos, is just to commend city manager for really taking a leadership role in this. And I can definitely sense a culture change amongst the staff, and I think this is not something you put in writing on day one. It's something that you create in terms of a culture. So I think that it has been effective in its implementation, but to really solidify it with council approval, I think will take it a long way. So congratulations to you and the staff.
Nothing to add.
Well said. Well said. How about a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second? Oh, you got
Okay. All
One
those-
of us will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
it. Aye.
And that is unanimous. Well done. And we are going to, at this point, recess into closed session, and then we will open the open session back up after that.